Adar. Why? Because it's a form of redemption. And Pesach, of course, is the redemption. Geula, there's some differences between them. The Geula from Egypt, the redemption from Egypt was 10 plagues, splitting of the sea. We just sang the song, the poem. And we make a big deal about Pesach. Pesach is always in Nisan. We never double up Nisan, make an extra Nisan. There was a debate about that once. King Chizkiah wanted to add an extra month. Once Nisan had already started, and the sages were very angry at him. He says, once the month of Nisan starts, it's the new year, you can't add an extra month. You lost your chance. You have to do it before Adar is over, then you can add the extra Adar. So in any case, the Talmud's very clear that Purim has to be in the second Adar, if there are two Adars. And the reason is because we want to juxtapose two types of redemption. I mentioned yesterday my first Rosh Yeshiva, Rav Chaim Druckman, of blessed memory, passed away about 33 days ago or 35 days ago. And he explained very clearly that the sages were trying to give us a message. And the message is, don't think that in order for it to be called redemption, you have to have supernatural miracles, 10 plagues, splitting of the sea. We have to connect that type of redemption to what were the signifying characteristics of the Purim redemption. No supernatural miracles. If you read the book of Esther, full of political machinations and lottery, chance, luck of the draw. Of course, the idea is that we say, even though the name of God is not explicitly mentioned in the Megillah, do you know that? The entire book. It's the only book in the Bible that doesn't have the name of God in it. Even though it's not there, we give thanks to Hashem and we recognize that it's His hand guiding history, and it's called a redemption, and that's why it has to be juxtaposed to the other redemption, the redemption of Nisan and the redemption of Adar. And so we always celebrate Purim in the Adar that's closest to Nisan, to teach us that just like Pesach was redemption by the hand of God, so too the miracles of the Jewish people being saved from Haman through natural causes, because Esther became the queen and she got chosen, and then he got chosen, and it happened to be that the king wanted to punish or to praise, and Haman got taken down. He was at the wrong place at the wrong time, but that's also the hand of God. So we have a message from the Talmud that we should recognize redemption can come in all forms, shapes, and sizes, even at the hands of David Ben Gurion, for example. Right? The redemption is, even if it comes with tanks and planes, and not a staff of the water turning into blood, and little frogs jumping around. It's also redemption. The very fact that we have our political independence and we have a state of Israel after thousands of years, that's also something we celebrate. And we appreciate here is the day of Tu B'Shvat. We're appreciating the land of Israel. Tu B'Shvat became a day to celebrate the land of Israel with the fruits. The fruits. Sometimes they actually were so thrilled. Where did I read a story? This fellow went to kindergarten. This is in Europe somewhere. And the teacher says, I have something very special to show you. And he took out an orange from the land of Israel. Wow. And they took it home and they kept it, took it out to look at. They were just amazed. It's a real fruit from the land of Israel. It's a real place. Here we are. So Tu B'Shvat is a day to celebrate the land of Israel as a real place. It's a miracle that we're here. So that, the Talmud says, we always celebrate Purim in the second Adar. So does that mean that that's the real one? I don't know. It means in terms of Purim, that's the one we celebrate. We also celebrate Purim in the first Adar. It's called Purim Katan. And the Mishnah says, they're both Purim, except for reading the Megillah. We only do in the second one. And so reading the Megillah is one of the central mitzvot that, together with that, is giving gifts to the poor. The poor people are waiting for the reading of the Megillah. They know they're expecting their donations. And so the weight of celebrating Purim goes to the second Adar. But really, they're both, maybe you could say, are Adar. But it depends then the question is, what about birthdays? Bar mitzvah boy. When is he going to be kosher to count for the minyan? First Adar or second Adar? If he's born in the first Adar, makes sense. First Adar, it comes out his bar mitzvah year is also a leap year, so then it makes sense. That's his birthday. But if his birthday's in a regular year, maybe he's not really bar mitzvah until the second month of Adar. If we learn from Purim, maybe that's special though, about Purim. Because Purim, the message is about redemption, right? Here it's just a birthday. You don't have to learn anything about it. The birthday. This is a good question. What about a yortzeit? What about commemorating somebody's death? They died in a regular year on the 20th of Adar. So do you commemorate? There used to be a custom that people would fast. Some people still do. On the day your father died, for example, you fast that day every year. So should I fast on the 20th of Adar Rishon or on the fast of Adar Sheni? What do you think the answer is?
You can choose anything.
The answer is there's three opinions. Some people say you should do it on the first. Some people say you should do it on the second. And some people say you should do it on both. There's a debate about it. So you asked a good question. Will the real Adar please stand up? It's hard to know what the real one means. It depends what topic you're talking about. We do know that Purim, for the most part, is pushed off to the second Adar. But in terms of other things, there's a debate. In terms of Bar Mitzvah also, I think there's a debate. It's not clear which is the real Adar. They're both Adar, Adar Aleph and Adar Bet. L'chaim, l'chaim. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam she'akol nהיה b'dvaro.
Amen. But I have another question. It's not so clear for me. Last week's parasha, we talk about the first month and the 15th. But what do you mean with the first month? Do you mean already Nisan?
Nisan. Yeah, the Torah calls it the first month. Already in Parshat Bo. 2 weeks ago. It said the first this month shall be the first month for you, for all generations. To commemorate, why? Why do we say that? The first month really is Tishrei, right? That's when Rosh Hashanah is.
First month to leave Egypt.
Yes, so?
The freedom.
That's right. We have to celebrate the redemption. Celebrate the redemption in the calendar. We mark it in the calendar. Well, how do we do that? By saying that even though really Rosh Hashanah is the beginning of the year, L'chaim. Nisan will be from now on the first month. So it's the only calendar I know in the world where we have the first month, not at the beginning of the year. You could say we have two heads of the year. First of Nisan and the first of Tishrei. 6 months away from each other, right? It's a circle, 12 months, 6 months and 6 months. It's the beginning of the second half, you could say. Now we'll debate which one is the second half and which is the first half. It's a circle. Depends what you're talking about. If you're talking about the years, the agricultural cycle, then that's September. That's Rosh Hashanah, Tishrei. But if it's about Jewish people, not only is Nisan our birthday, it becomes the first month, the first Jewish month for all generations.
Also, if people came out of slavery?
Yes, you're saying right, slavery, yes.
The first thing you need to control about is time, and that's the reason to
Very good, very good. Rabbi Soloveitchik spoke about that, explaining the importance of time as the marker of freedom. When you're a slave, you have no idea what day it is, you have no idea what time it is. Whatever your master tells you to do, whatever, now is day, now is night, it's up to him to decide. You don't make your own schedule. Mark of a free man is that he has a control somewhat of time. He has a sense of time. And so that's why this mitzvah in particular was chosen to be the first mitzvah for the free people. That we're setting a new element in the calendar. This is going to be the first month. It's a mark of freedom. And it's an amazing feature. You wanted to say something else?
Yeah, no, I can say.
Okay. That in the Torah, the month, what's the first month called?
Aviv.
Good. It's also called Aviv.
Or do you the first month?
The first month is called the first month. And the second month is called
Second month.
the second. There's just numbers. When did we start calling it Nisan, Iyar, Sivan? Do you know them off by heart?
Babylon.
Do you know them off by heart? He does. He has a song. You know them. You have the song. Do you know them?
I don't remember the song, but probably I can.
Let's hear. Nisan,
Iyar,
Sivan, Tammuz, Av, Elul, Tishrei, Cheshvan, Kislev, Tevet, Shvat, Adar. What month are we in? Shvat, the second last month. 15th of Shvat. That's why we call it Tu Bishvat. Tu, how is that 15? Tet stands for 9 and Vav stands for 6. 9 plus 6 equals 15. Tu Bishvat.
Can you say the four, like, we have like 4 New Years. Can you, all of them, you can call them Rosh Hashanah?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So why did we start calling them Nisan, Iyar, Sivan? Why the Torah calls them the first month, the second month, the third month?
Still the exile, right? In Babylon.
Yeah. So
Babylon people call
Babylon called them that. So why should we take Babylonian names?
It's more easier, I think.
No. Our sages said, the Ramban claims. He says that it's to fulfill this first mitzvah in the Torah. First mitzvah in the Torah is that this month shall be for you the first of the month. Right? We're changing the calendar instead of only, one cycle of 12 months. The cycle starts halfway through. This is month number 1, even though we're in the middle of the year. He says, what's the essence of this mitzvah? It's to mark the redemption in the calendar. And so the Jews from Babylon came out of exile. They were redeemed. After how many years?
200.
around 70 years.
70 years. The prophet says you're going to be exiled for 70 years, and then you're going to come back. As a matter of fact, the Purim story starts, according to the Talmud, it says that Achashverosh had a big party. Right? It's the book of Esther. It's a good book. You should read it. We're now within 30 days of Purim. Got to start preparing. The Talmud says, you know what Achashverosh was celebrating? It says, when we read the beginning of the Megillah, that he had such a big party, gold and silver, and he used various vessels. And the tradition is that we sing that Song of Esther, the Megillah, we read it with a special happy tune, festive, joyous, special tune, different than all year long. And these 3 words, V'cheli mikelim shonim, various vessels, we change the tune into another tune, the tune that we use on Tisha B'Av, a sad tune. The tune that we use for the Megillah, not of Esther, but the Megillat Eicha. What do we read on Tisha B'Av? Megillat Eicha. Why do we mix up the tune? Because we're hinting to this midrash. The midrash says, you know why Achashverosh was having a big party? He was celebrating that the Jewish people are in exile and they're never getting out. Because he made a calculation. From the time that these vessels were taken from the first temple, who took them?
King Nebuchadnezzar.
King Nebuchadnezzar took them to Babylon, and then who conquered the Babylonians?
Median Persians.
The Persians. And here we have the Persian king. He conquered the vessels of the temple. And he said, but the Jewish people are going to come back. The prophets spoke about that they're going to come out of exile after 70 years. So he made a calculation. He had his historians figure out how many years has it been since Nebuchadnezzar destroyed the first temple? And he reached the calculation of 70. And he said, ha! He said, ha! I got him. Jewish people are never going to be out of exile. Let's have a party. And he took out, at the party, the vessels, not just gold and silver, any old vessels of gold and silver. He took out the vessels from the temple. The Jewish vessels from the Jewish temple, the holy vessels, which we read about in the Torah. What vessels do you know of that we read about in the Torah? The holy vessels of the temple. Give me an example. Morning. There is a kior for Netilat Yadayim made out of brass. What else?
Menorah.
The menorah, of course. What else?
The table for the bread.
The table for the bread. Good. What else?
And a lot of silver bowls.
There were a lot of bowls of silver. There were vessels of gold also for Yom Kippur. All those vessels he took out to celebrate that redemption is not coming for the Jewish people.
How did he make the mistake? I think
The Talmud has a long calculation, and they explain exactly how. That he started counting from the exile of, I think, when the Babylonian general Nebuzaradan, he came even before the general Nebuchadnezzar himself came, and he exiled the leaders from Jerusalem. But then only afterwards was the actual temple destroyed, and then even afterwards we know that there was a fellow called Gedaliah ben Achikam, who was the leader of the Jewish community that remained. They gathered together, and then there was a political assassination. We actually fast on the death of Gedaliah, because that was the final nail in the coffin of the Jewish reign in the land of Israel, the first temple times. So there's a few markers from when we start to count. And he counted wrong, and he was so happy, and ultimately it could be understood that the whole story of Esther is about the redemption. What's redemption? Not only that the Jewish people were saved from annihilation by Haman, who wanted to kill every man, woman, and child. That's a big one. That's pretty important to celebrate. But also it was about the question of, can the Jewish people go back to the land of Israel? According to our sages, Achashverosh's grandson was King Cyrus, Koresh, who declared, right, the son of Esther. Esther became Achashverosh's queen. They had a baby. Maybe his name was Koresh. And Koresh declared, whoever wants to go back, the famous declaration of Koresh appears at the end of the book of Kings, and in the book of the Divrei Yamim. Then else, whoever one of the Jewish people wants to go back,
And also in Yeshayahu.
Yeshayahu speaks of Koresh. Chapter 44, Mashiach. 45. That's right, Koresh is my anointed one, Mashiach. My anointed one to herald the redemption of the Jewish people coming out of exile. A second time. The first exile was where? In Egypt. And we were redeemed to go back to the land of Israel. Just like the Avram, Yitzchak, and Yaakov were in the land of Israel, Moshe takes the Jewish people out of Egypt to go to the land of Israel. So too, there's going to be a leader who led the Jewish people out of the exile of Babylon. Who was the leader who took the Jewish people out, and we got redeemed from 70 years of exile. We went back and rebuilt the second temple. Zerubbabel, Ezra, Nehemiah, all the leaders of this, the second temple period. So I'll just finish the point, and then I'll take your questions. My point is that the redemption, this was the second redemption of the Jewish people. First one, they were redeemed from Egypt. Second, we were redeemed from Babylon. And the Jewish people were scratching their heads and saying, we want to celebrate, we want to fulfill the mitzvah to commemorate the redemption, just like the first one. How does the Torah tell us to commemorate the redemption? The first redemption, put it in the calendar. Call the month that we left, call it the first month. So we have to mark it somehow in the calendar. Do you know what they did? They said, we're going to choose the Babylonian names, Nisan, Iyar, Sivan, and we're going to use them. Not just because it's convenient, because we're Babylonians and we speak Babylonian, and we're going to take those names, because it's a little strange. You should be speaking Hebrew or Aramaic or something, not Babylonian. Why do they choose the Babylonian names? So the Ramban explains that they wanted to fulfill this mitzvah of marking the redemption in the calendar. You can't change the calendar. You know, the first month, the Torah says, is Nisan. But we're gonna color the calendar with these Babylonian names so we'll always think about it. Now is the month of Sivan. Why are we saying Sivan? It's a Babylonian name. Because we were redeemed from Babylon. The redemption from the exile is always present in our minds in the Jewish calendar. Is that clear? And that's why even today, believe it or not, I don't know if you've ever seen a Jewish wedding invitation. You say, please join us at the celebration of the wedding of Ari and Shani. Sometimes it's the parents who write the invitation. That's the traditional older style, because the parents are paying for everything. And the children were very young. So the parents are saying, please join us at the wedding of our children, Ari, and our children. The names of the parents are there. And then they tell you, come to this place, Ulamei Ulmaya, the halls opposite the old city walls, wherever the wedding is, in Rishon LeZion, in New York, in Brooklyn, wherever you happen to be making the wedding, then they'd say the date. What's the date of the wedding? Well, September 5th, 1984. What? This is a Jewish wedding. What date should you be using? The Hebrew dates. You say Kaf Vav Elul, Tafshin Nun Dalet. Okay? Just for an example. That's using the months, the Babylonian months, the Jewish months. Elul, right? Nisan, Iyar, Sivan, Tammuz, Av, whatever date it happens to be. Some people recently have started to add a third date. They usually put on the secular date because people, for convenience. For business, they're using the secular dates. So that's what the calendars you buy on the street, right? I have in my Google Calendar, I have an add-on. It gives you the Jewish date for every. So today is Tu B'Shvat. It says on my calendar Tu B'Shvat. But even tomorrow it'll say Tet Zayin B'Shvat. The next day it'll say Yud Zayin B'Shvat. In addition to whatever date. What's today? The 6th of February. Tomorrow's the 7th of February. It'll be the 16th of Shvat. Every day it says. And these wedding invitations, my nephew's wedding invitation, I believe my brother's wedding invitation, and even on my own, I believe. I'm not sure if I did this. I can't remember. I should look it up because this weekend is our anniversary. So we should look. It's a long time ago, 29 years. Some people put on their wedding invitation a third date. A third date? Said, well, if it's a mitzvah to mark the redemption from Egypt, and it's a mitzvah in the calendar, and it's a mitzvah to mark the redemption of Babylon in the calendar, we should mark the redemption of 2,000 years of exile, of the creation of the state of Israel, of the ingathering of the exiles. We should put it in the calendar. And so many people say the 70th year to the establishment of the state of Israel. We don't necessarily put it into the months of the year, but they'll mark how many years it's been since the establishment of the state of Israel to fulfill this mitzvah, that we should commemorate the redemption in the calendar, in our discussion of the calendar. So I don't know if you've ever seen that. Some people put it into their wedding invitations. Otherwise, it's not an official obligation. But it's a nice idea to commemorate the redemption. When we're celebrating the Purim redemption, we said we have Purim. We read the Megillah. And maybe that's the beginning of calling the month of Adar. Because when this was the time period during the ingathering of the exiles. What was Mordechai doing in Persia? Mordechai was in Shushan, representing the Jewish people. Where were the Jewish people? They were scattered all over 127 states. But there was also, Mordechai is mentioned as being one of the exiles who returned to the land of Israel together with Ezra. There's a list of names. Mordechai was one of the leaders of the state of Israel. Right? The state of Ezra. What's he doing in Shushan? Apparently he went back to Washington, D.C. to lobby. He was a member of AIPAC. In America, there's the American Lobby, the American Israel Political Affairs Committee. Mordechai was trying to get the rights of the Jews in the land of Israel set up, because it wasn't easy at the beginning. If you read the books of Ezra and Nehemiah, you'll see that there were a lot of struggles. Today, we were supposed to be where? Planting trees in the Shomron, because we're fighting over the land. If we don't plant trees, if we don't take control, the Arabs claim it's theirs. So there's struggles when the first few years of the state. Mordechai was doing the same thing. He was fighting for that the state of Israel of the time, the second commonwealth, would be able to be established, that they'd allow us to build Jerusalem, allow us to build the second temple. So there's a lot of similarities between the Purim story and modern day Israel, and our redemption and their redemption. So of course we focus on the redemption there. There was a decree to exterminate every man, woman, and child of all the Jews. Well, if you put together the 100 years in a package, in the modern time we had Hitler. Yimach Shemo v'zichro, may his name be blotted out, who tried to destroy the entire race of every man, woman, and child. And this was part of the redemption process. And then we got the state of Israel. So you could put together the miracles of being saved from the extermination, together with the miracles of return of the exiles and establishing Jewish presence in the land of Israel, and say that perhaps nowadays we have a modern day Purim. Redemption. The third redemption. What was the first redemption?
Exodus.
Exodus from Egypt. What's the second redemption?
Babylonia.
Right. being saved from the extermination and leaving in the exile of Babylon and Persia and coming to the land of Israel. And the third redemption is being saved from the extermination. Unfortunately, not enough were saved, but the rest of there were 13 million Jews, 6 million were killed, approximately. But another 7 remained. And those 7 that remained came to the land of Israel and established the state of Israel. This is the third redemption. We haven't yet built the Beit HaMikdash. Some people say you can't call it redemption until you've built the Beit HaMikdash. Some people say, well, it's true that there's 8 million Jews in Israel, but there's still 15 million Jews in the world, or more. How many are there?
I think it's 13 million right now.
13? I think it's more. I think it's a little more. But anyways, it's not necessary there's only 6 or 7 million Jews in the land of Israel. It's not the majority of Jews yet, so you can't say that the redemption has come. But it's coming. Be'ezrat Hashem. Either way, we don't have to argue about semantics. But now I'll take questions. I think that we can celebrate the amazing historic events of our day, and I don't have a problem calling it redemption. And we hope that the redemption will continue to grow and flourish. It's not the end of the redemption. Mashiach, the person, the king, has not yet come. But still, we've seen so many miracles. And it's a survival from the extermination, essentially. And the Jewish people, the fact that we're studying Torah here in Jerusalem, nothing less than a miracle. And what does it say in the prayer for the state of Israel? There's a phrase. Please save the leaders and the state of Israel. And it says? The soldiers. And it prayed for Medinat Israel. Reishit tzmichat geulateinu. It's the beginning of the blossoming of our redemption. It's the beginning of the blossoming of the redemption. I had a teacher, my rabbi, said to me, that's wrong. How can you call it the beginning of the blossoming? We're in the middle already. It's much more than just the beginnings of the blossoming. We're further along in the redemption. Other rabbis, of course, said, you can't call it either redemption at all. So, but I think that we're pretty safe now calling it a redemption. In any case, that's not important. The point is to thank God and to celebrate and maybe mark it in the calendar. When you get married, Be'ezrat Hashem, you can put it in the calendar. How many years it is to the state of Israel? What are we in now?
75?
It's going to be 75 in a few months. We're in our 75th year. We're going to mark the 75th birthday of the state of Israel very soon. What's that called? There's silver, gold, there's anniversaries, right? There's 25 is silver anniversary, 50th anniversary is gold anniversary, 75 is, I don't know, platinum? I don't know. You have to look it up. It's a secular idea that every year has a specific precious metal associated with it. Gold anniversary is 50th.
I know if you marry like 12 years, you have like a big party in the family.
12? Never heard of that.
It's a strange custom.
25 I've heard of. 50 I've heard of.
6, 12 and a half.
Really? 6, 12? Okay. And then 24? What?
Yeah, 24 years.
Nice. Okay. It's interesting custom to count by sixes. But different cultures. Okay, now I'll take some questions. Hananel, what did you want to ask?
First, yours first.
That's okay. You were waiting too, I know, and you were waiting too, but we'll get to all the questions.
Yeah, sure.
But he's just straight in front of me, you see, that if you sat there, then you'd get to be first also.
Not related to our themes or topics, right? I want to ask you how many rooms, cheder, right? Room, right?
Cheder, yes.
Moab, what?
In what? Noach's boat.
Noah.
The Torah doesn't tell us how many rooms he had, it tells us how many floors he had. The standard interpretation of what it says it says in the Torah, kinim ta'aseh hateva. Kinim, a ken, is used in modern Hebrew for a nest of a bird. But what it means is a small place, a small division. So the Torah seems to indicate that the teva of Noach was divided somehow. Chazal say that there were 3 floors. Bottom floor was for the excrement, the middle floor was for the animals, and the top floor was for the people. But I believe there's also midrashim that speak about dividers within the floors. You imagine you'd have to separate the lions from the lambs, or else they wouldn't last throughout the entire ship ride. You'd have the animals kill each other, right? So there were some divisions.
What's the food of the lions?
The food, it's sheep. I think it's right. So all sorts of animals.
Rabbi, I think it's all medical, right?
Medical.
Anything about food, even the lion, tiger, or something like that, they have to, there might be a problem right there in even the Noah boat, right?
Yeah.
But I think it's a miracle.
Yes, I think so too. I think it's a miracle. That's why I say we don't really know. We don't really know what the ark looked like. We don't really know how it was divided. We don't know how the animals survived in there for a year. It seems there's so many questions about how to make that. Maybe nowadays we can have climate control. We can live on a big boat, a cruise ship. You have kitchens in there, and you've got swimming pools. But in Teva of Noach, I agree with you. I think it was a miracle. And the details of that miracle, we have some indications. The sages had some insight. Maybe they had some traditions. And they tell us that there was 3 floors. And the Torah itself does use the word kinim, which means small sections. So, but exactly how it was divided, I don't know. Yeah.
Some of the Rav told me, he asked me, right, interview, something like that.
Okay. Because, okay.
I feel 3 floor.
Good for you.
Yeah.
Good for you.
But the Sarsi, he told me that's why I'm.
What did he tell you? That you were wrong for saying it's 3 floors?
3 floor is correct, but how many header? I don't know till now.
So you say, I don't know, and that would be the right answer. Because nobody knows.
I failed.
You failed? I don't think you failed because of that. No. I think he wanted you to go study Torah.
Maybe.
That's all. He didn't fail because you didn't know. In general, when you interview for Giur, it's not really a test. You don't have to know everything to be a convert. You don't have to know all the answers. The rabbi wants to check if you care. If you care about Torah, about living Torah.
How many Abraham's son here?
How many sons did Avram have? Yeah, that's a basic knowledge.
Knowledge for every Israel.
Yeah, I think most Israelis know.
8, right?
But
I thought 8.
That's very interesting. We learned about it a little bit. The other day I actually showed you a chart. Primarily, the answer he was looking for was maybe 2. Right?
Yes.
Yitzchak and Yishmael. And the Torah describes at length the stories about Yishmael had to be sent away, and Yitzchak got chosen, and he's the primary son. But we all know that Avram had other children afterwards from Keturah, 12 children. So if you add 12 to 2, that's 14. Keturah had 12 children.
Not 6?
12? Well, I showed you the chart. I showed it to you. I have it right here, actually. Depends how you count. Keturah had 6, but then Yokshan had another 6. I showed it to you over here, that there's a way to count it that works out to 12. 12 is the classic number that all the different branches in history had. Yishmael had 12 children, and Avram had 12 children through Keturah, and the children of Haran had 12 children, and Yaakov had to wait a little bit later until finally he had 12 children. Yeah, you want to take these? Take these. Sure. Send them over. Yeah, these are the charts. Maybe they're yours. I don't know. They were on the table here. All three. No, all three. All three. Israel?
It says 6.
All of them are for him.
It says 6 children.
6 children, but his grandchildren, include the grandchildren, it has 12. In any case, we covered this before. Good questions, but I wouldn't say that because of that you can't be Jewish. But you do have to study Torah. You do have to prepare yourself to know some basic knowledge about Judaism. Most important, to know how to practice Judaism. What do you have to do on Tu B'Shvat?
Celebrate, eat nuts and fruit,
Pantry.
and think about the redemption.
All good things. You all failed.
Oh.
None of you can become Jewish. What's the correct answer?
To pray.
Big fat 0.
Nothing.
You don't have to do anything on Tu B'Shvat. For years, all you did on Tu B'Shvat, it says in the halacha books, do not say Tachanun. Tachanun is part of the prayers, supplications, and we omit it on festive days. There's something festive about the day, but how to celebrate? Do you have to eat fruit? No. Do you have to say any particular prayers? No. There's no Hallel. Do you have to have a festive meal? No. It's all beautiful customs, and that's what we're doing. We're talking about the land of Israel. We're talking about the redemption. We're talking about the fruit. We appreciate the fruit that God gives us, the land. We're talking about the meaning of the land of Israel for the Jewish people. Those are all good things to do, but it's not an obligation. Most Jews, even today, Orthodox Jews, practicing Jews, you know how they celebrate Tu B'Shvat?
Singing.
Not saying Tachanun. That's it. They don't sing, they don't talk, they don't learn, they don't eat, nothing. They just, the leader of the services goes straight to say Kaddish, and they say, no Tachanun today. That's it. That's a very, very minor holiday. It's not really a major holiday. If you're a farmer in the land of Israel, it could have significance for taking off trumot and masrot from the fruit. The first year, the second year, the third year, that's the change between the calendar years of the 7-year cycle for fruit.
Hagar changed into after the Hagar changed to the Keturah, right?
Some people say it was the same person.
The same person.
Hagar was Keturah.
changed to Keturah.
That's right. Some people say it was the same
But
person.
I think there's only
I have it for you. Actually, I drew a picture. I think I'll show you how we count that. There's actually here. I counted the children of Keturah. It's a little bit complicated. I'll show you this. You have to give it back to me because this is how you get to 12. Now, if you count all the children of Keturah, it comes out to 12. Here, this one you can keep. Pass this around. Give me back. All right. One of them, you can give it back to me, but so that I can make copies for the next group. I circled how it works out that those are 12. Give that to him and give me the one with the red marker, with the red pen. Bring it back to me. Yeah. And you take that one. You see there how I circled the 12? I don't know if you could see it, but it's the first 6. And then they had these children. Altogether, it comes out to be 12. It's actually 5. No, it's 6 plus... Oh, there's even more than 12 if you include all the grandchildren. But that really is the lineage of... comes out to be 14, not 12. If you include all the great-grandchildren of Keturah. Anyways, I think the Torah is trying to give us an idea, telling us that there's nation building going on here. the nation of Israel had to wait until Yaakov had 12 children. But there were other nations being built, of course. The nations of Ashur came from Keturah.
Midian
Ashur,
also.
Assyrian. Right, Midian came from Keturah. All other children of Abraham. And it's clear that you have clearly the children of Ishmael were 12. And then Esav had 12 as well. Esav had 12 is a little bit more, but it depends how you count. We won't go into those details right now. Okay? Thank you for asking a question not connected at all to, but it is.
It's 13.
13 is the answer.
Yeah.
You should ask him to show you why he says that. But you can answer. This is what Judaism is about. It's about debate and discussion. And you say why I think it's.
No, before that, I go to no.
It wasn't an official interview. It was a rabbi who wanted to know whether he's ready to convert. So he asked you some questions, if I understand correctly. So it was not an official. It is a difficult question. Yeah, I think that you can be Jewish without knowing that Abraham had 14 or 13 children.
Exactly how many? Yes, you know how many?
No number.
That's right. You say, I don't know. The point is to discuss it. Discuss it. You should know Yitzchak and Ishmael.
Yeah. What you know, what you don't know, why you don't know.
Exactly.
How you will know.
How you're going to try to figure it out. How you calculate. Not about the answer. It's about the learning Torah. If you count the first generation of Keturah's children, the second generation of Keturah's children, and the third generation of Keturah's children. So it depends how you count them. Yes.
Hagar changed into Keturah before.
It depends if Hagar and Keturah are the same people or not. There's different opinions.
I saw in some of the midrash.
Yes. That's right. The some midrashim say that they were the same person. Very good. Okay. Back to our topic of, we were talking about Tu B'Shvat, we're talking about the land of Israel, the redemption in the land of Israel. And Micha wanted to ask a question.
Yes, there's a question.
Thank you for waiting.
Yes. No, I just want to know, this was just the Rav said about that Esther, the Cyrus is the grandchild of Esther. Is that in the Talmud or in the Midrash?
Both.
Oh,
Both.
okay,
So the Talmud includes halachic sections and agadic sections. So agada is many times used the way you say the word midrash.
Yeah. There's more stories, right? More
Right,
like story.
right. Stories and legends, agada. So this agada appears in the Talmud. So we say it's a Gemara, but if it appears in the midrash, we'll call it a midrash. But the point is, it's a non-legal tradition.
But to keep it safe, I always write according to the Jewish traditions.
Good. The tradition could be either from the Talmud, where it gets recorded in the midrash, gets recorded in the Talmud. You could have these traditions.
That's very
everywhere.
interesting.
Yeah.
So that's why he's written in Ishiyahu and stuff, because he's connected with the Klal Yisrael and science. Because he's the great grandson of Esther.
Right. I believe that this is, we want to believe that all the agents of God, who are the agents of God? Jews. So how could Cyrus, this Persian king, be the agent of God? So we find a way that, he was actually Jewish, because he was the son or the grandson of Esther. There's different ways of understanding the generations there. And the Persian era is a big mix.
But it doesn't have to be an historical fact. Because we don't read like that, like facts. We want to bring a message.
Exactly. That's. I agree. And I think that, and there is of course different sources which contradict each other. So we're not sure exactly of the historical fact, but the tradition is giving us the message that God's agents are the Jewish people, and maybe even Cyrus, the Persian king, maybe he secretly was a Jew, and so he's also the agent of the Jewish people. It's like people have trouble. What did I say? Who wrote the Declaration of Independence? Who read the Declaration of Independence of Israel?
Cyrus? No, the state of Israel.
1948?
Ben-Gurion?
David Ben-Gurion. But he was a secular Jew. We have to find a way that he also can be an agent of Hashem. Even though he's not the biggest tzaddik. Just like Koresh was not the biggest tzaddik. He was a Persian ruler. But he's still connected. His name was David. David, first king of Israel, right? Davidic kingdom. So maybe he's the beginning of the third Jewish kingdom. Okay, another question. Who else wanted to ask a question? Yeah, Aaron.
When's about the calculations? I mean, usually said the king.
70 years, yeah. The Talmud in the beginning of Masechet Megillah has a long discussion about exactly why his calculation was right and why his calculation was wrong.
The king counted from the exile of the religious leaders, right? And how do we count?
I can't remember the details of the discussion in the Gemara right now.
From the
I can open it up. But I can't. I don't have that Masechet
But
Megillah.
anyways, a few years after that. A few years after the.
That's correct. It's a few years later. Yeah. We count it. We calculate a little differently. He miscalculated. We celebrate his miscalculation on Purim. Maybe that's why we drink wine. I can't figure out the calculation, but Hashem saves us. That's the main thing. That's all I need to know.
And another question related to Michael's question. I remember I learned something like because Esther is a Jewish, she could not have any intimacy relations with non-Jewish.
She was forced. She was forced.
So in the end, anyway, they had a relationship, and then Esther gave birth to a child, and then probably the child became the king of Cyrus, right?
Correct.
That's what it is.
That's right. That's correct.
Even though Esther was not willing?
That's correct. That's right. It's a big question. We have Esther, the great heroine. People name their daughters Esther because she saved the Jewish people. What's she doing sleeping with a non-Jewish man? The answer is she was forced.
She was raped?
She was raped. That's right. She had to enter the contest. She didn't want to. The Megillah tells the story that way. That she did the bare minimum possible. And
It's like there
was only one time that she went willingly to the king. And the question is, how was she allowed to do that? If she's taken, if she's forced, it's not her fault. When's the one time that she went willingly to the king? We read it in the Megillah.
When she did
the king didn't call her, but she went because she wanted to ask to save the Jewish people from the decrees of Haman. So how could she go? Going in front of the king probably meant that she slept with him. She's going willingly. It doesn't say it explicitly, but going in front of the king. Says, I want to have a party with the king, and I'll have a party, another party. Kings know how to party. So how could she go willingly? Some people say that this is a very strange situation where we have somebody committing a sin for a good purpose. To save the Jewish people. Very dangerous territory here. You're never allowed to willingly commit a sin. But we do know that if you're at war, to save your people, the IDF, I think last night, we killed 7 people. Soldiers. The defense forces, they went and they killed Arabs. Why did they do that? Because they were trying to save millions of citizens of Israel from these terrorists that are going to come and kill us. So they went to find them out and to capture them and their weapons, and they shot at us, so we had to defend ourselves, so we shot them. So sometimes you have to commit a sin for a mitzvah to save the Jewish people. So perhaps that's what Esther was doing. That one time that she went willingly, it's because she had to save the Jewish people. In the end, it worked, right? Because of her request, the king said, hang him to Haman. And let the Jewish people protect themselves and fight back. And that happened on the 14th of Adar. Happened on the 13th of Adar, that the Jews defended themselves, and instead of being killed, the decree was on the 13th of Adar, kill all the Jews. Everybody go kill all the Jews. So when Esther convinced the king, he said, the Jews can fight back. We fought back, and we were saved, so we celebrate on the 14th of Adar. This is a good book, the book of Esther. Have you read it before? It's such a good book. There's a mitzvah to read it twice. Every Purim, once at night and once in the day. And we read it publicly. We read it from a scroll. We make a bracha on it. It's very special, but it's good to study and to be prepared. Okay, Harana, you have another question about this?
The children of the
Keturah. Yeah?
Which one?
So I'm counting these. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And then in the next line, there's another 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 8 plus 6 is 14. And then if you count the grandchildren, there's another 3. So that's...
Only the children.
only the children, 6.
6, 7, 8, right? It's called
And 7 and 8. It's like in Yishmael, so it's 8, yeah.
8, right?
Right. Depends how you count, though. Many times in the Torah, grandchildren are called children.
Children.
That's why I'm being flexible here with, I want to get to the number 12. Because number 12 represents the nation, or a whole another civilization, really. That's what the Torah is giving a message to us.
Jacob, Abraham and Manasseh also called, this is my children.
That's right. So, but we have to always have 12. So if you count Ephraim and Manasseh, the children of Yosef, as 2, we're going to have 13. What do? We don't count Levi. Levi didn't get a portion of the land. The land was divided into 12, not 13. If you count Yosef as Ephraim and Manasseh, count them as tribes, so you've got 13. So we always have to play with that number, because 12 is, well, how many months of the year do we have?
12 months.
12, but sometimes there's 13. You see that it's an ancient tradition, that really the number 12 is a symbol. There's 12 cycles of the moon in a solar year, the sun.
And like yesterday, we talked about the place, Elim, with the 70,
Elim, right?
the 12 wells.
There were 12 wells there. The 12 is a symbolic number of a complete tribe, complete family, complete entity, a group. There's a group of the 12 springs from which the rest of the Jewish people came. And then the 70, I believe they're symbolic numbers.
But why they don't say today, let the minyan be 12 men instead of 10?
Minyan. Why? Minyan should be 12. It'd make it harder for us. Minyan is 10. The sages learn out the concept of minyan being 10 from another group. Believe it or not, it's connected. It starts with who's the first group that's called an Eidah? The word Eidah is like a group, another word for group. It means like a team or a unit in the army. So it's called an Eidah. So what group is called an Eidah? And it says that you should pray God, you should worship God in an Eidah. So we try to look through the Torah and we say, where do we find an Eidah? And the truth is, we find it, the real number is 12. Who is called an Eidah? The 12 spies. God says, after the spies come back and they sin and they speak ill about the land of Israel, he says, Ad matay la'eidah hara'a azot. This evil council, this evil unit. But were there 12 really?
No, 10. 10 was
2 of them didn't sin. What are we left with? 10. This is where we learn out that a minyan is 10. So it really does start with 12. 10, minyan is 12 minus 2. Minus 2 that were tzaddikim. We're left with, we need a minyan of 10 evil people to create a minyan. Of course, we don't want anybody to be evil, but the word Eidah actually comes from that first gathering, that first group, that unit. And then we learn out from somewhere else that you're supposed to pray to Hashem as a unit. It comes from the 12 minus 2, which is 10. But it's connected, what you're saying. Really, a minyan should be 12. Baruch Hashem. Sometimes you have a small town and only 10 Jews in it. It's hard enough to get 10 Jews together. Do you want to get 12 Jews together? Don't make it harder than it has to be.
Also, in the Mishnah, according to that, 10 people, a city is defined. Like they say, like if
That's right. That's right. You have to have 10. The 10 becomes also 10 is a very special number in Judaism as well. Just 10 commandments. That's right. And the sages say that the world, not only Torah was created with 10 commandments, but the world was created with 10 statements, 10 utterances. Right? If you look through the story of Bereshit, it says the word Vayomer Elokim 10 times.
10 sayings, 10 songs also corresponds with this.
It says that the Tehillim has 10 forms of praise. The word praise is different words. Tehillah and Hodu and Shevach, Shir, all this. They come to the number 10. I think the number 10 is used because we have 10 fingers, we have 10 toes. It's a classic number to use when you're counting things. I only know how to count up to 10 because I use my fingers. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. I'm finished. To be able to count beyond 10, you have to be abstract and say, or you have to use your friend. Come here, and now I can count up to 15 because I have my 10 and your 5. But if you're just your own person, it's 10. So there's reasons for the number 10 being a special number as well. Anyways, I want to say a few more things. I will have to go back to the laws of Kashrut. But it's a day to pay attention to the land of Israel. Yesterday we actually enjoyed the fruits of the land of Israel. We learned about the laws of brachot, the laws of precedence. Does anybody remember what... Those pages I gave out yesterday, do you remember?
Yes.
What's the order of precedence? If you didn't keep them, you can
Precedence? About the blessings.
About the blessings.
Yes.
Give these out.
Mezonot.
What's the acronym to remember? Maga-esh. Excuse me?
Like the one thing inside, you mean?
That's also, so there's two systems that we learned yesterday. I'll review it, just because we weren't in a classroom. System number 1 is the order of precedence called Maga-esh. Maga-esh. And that stands for Mezonot. You have it on your page. Mem stands for Mezonot. Gimel stands for Gefen, for the wine. And Baruch Priya Gefen. And then Aleph here, it's really an Ayin. So Mem, Gimel, Ayin. The Ayin stands for Etz. And then you have Esh, stands for Adama, the Aleph, and She'akol. So if you read from right to left, that spells Maga Esh. From left to right, excuse me. Okay?
They can cover all everything, right?
That's right. If you have, instead of Mizonot, you have Hamotzi, you don't make any of the other brachot, because it covers everything. That's right. Is that clear? Mem, Gimel, Ayin, Maga, Esh. You have to read from left to right, if I'm doing it in English. Maga, Esh. The Aleph here, and the Shin. Here, Shin. Okay, that's the first system. But then, within that system, we pull it out, and there's a second order precedence. If you're talking only about fruits, the order of precedence is based on the pasuk, which you have on your page. Eretz chita u'sorah v'gefen u'teina v'rimon, Eretz shemen u'dvash. And from here we learn out that what takes precedence is the the fruits which are closest to the word eretz. And we gave you a trick to remember it, that zeit shemen, the olive, comes first. And so the either closest to eretz, the word eretz, and you have it on your pages, and you can see that the first one closest to the word eretz is zeit shemen, because we're not counting chita or sorah, because they're part already from the mizonot. And so what we're left is we have the trick, one pit. I sent you the picture in the WhatsApp group,
It's very useful.
right? The olive, there's only one pit. The dates, it's split into two, so it's like two. That comes second. Shemen, dvash is honey. Right? Zeit shemen is olive oil, and dvash is honey, but it's date honey. And then dates. So we have olives, dates, and then of course grapes, figs, and pomegranates, geffen, teinav, rimon. So that's closest to eretz, or we said the hint by number of pits. Of course, the pomegranate has the most amount of pits, and that's why it's the last. Yes?
I have a question. If, for example, if you drink grape juice and ate some grapes, what kind of blessings you make?
Very good. So you notice that on your page, the word geffen appears twice. It appears here in the list of fruits, but in the first acronym, which I taught you, Mem, Gimel, Ayin, there's geffen here too. So we have two geffen. So which is it? Is geffen, here it's the number 3, right? We have Zait, Tamar, and then geffen. So is it third among the fruits, or is it before the fruits even get started? Over here, the geffen. The answer is, there's a distinction made between wine and grape juice, made from the grapes, and the actual grape itself. And that we see that there's a difference even in the al-hamichya blessing. The after blessing, for any of the 7 fruits, including the chita and sorah, is called bracha me'in shalosh. And we changed the language depending on what you ate. So if you ate cake and crackers, you say michya. Michya means nourishment. So that's like bread and come from grain. So chita and sorah. So anything eaten from the 5 grains, you say ala michya. But if you have wine, you say al ha-gefen, apre gefen. And if you have grapes, you say al ha-perot. You don't say al ha-gefen if you have grapes. You say al ha-perot. Because there's a status of the fruit, and then the special status of wine made from the fruit. Wine is very special. We spoke about it yesterday. So it's clear. So we have 2 different laws, and that's why we make the geffen, the bracha on the wine first. Yeah, question. And only afterwards the bracha on the grapes.
I don't understand something. Not clear. I know what it means, like the right order.
Yes.
And where you say it for, but you miss hamotzi. Or is it special for Tu Bishvat to say?
No, it depends. Mem stands for mezonot, and it also stands for ha-motzi. Right? Mem and the mem.
Okay.
Either one. If you have hamotzi, it goes first. There's one exception, which we do every week. We violate these laws every week.
Yeah, on Kiddush and Shabbat.
That's right. We say the Bor Priya Geffen over here, even before the Hamotzi. Why?
You make the Shabbat.
Because you have to make Kiddush. But because we're going out of order, it's improper. What do? We cover the bread. It's like it's not there yet. Bread's not there. If you have no bread, you don't make Hamotzi. You make a kiddush on the wine. That comes before any of the other foods. And then you uncover the bread. Oh, there's bread here. So you make the hamotzi, and then you don't have to make adama, shakol, or all those others. Because once you say hamotzi, covers all the rest. Wine is special, and the truth is, let's say during the weekday you have a meal, and you say mezonot, and you say etz, and even if let's say you say hamotzi, you're having a sandwich, and then someone offers you a drink of wine. You do say borei pri hagefen, even though you've said hamotzi, because the bracha on the wine is so special that it's not included in the hamotzi. The only thing that's not included by the bracha of hamotzi is the bracha borei pri hagefen. Yeah.
No, without a grape, right? Is grape something like that?
Grapes are included. Grapes are included unless some people say, no, grape juice is like wine, but grapes themselves, fruit, if you eat it as part of your meal, then it's included. If you said hamotzi, it's included. Some people say that if you have fruit for dessert, most poskim say that dessert is not part of the meal. So you need a separate bracha for dessert. When dessert comes, you finished eating. So everything that if you have grapes for dessert, then you make a borei pri ha'etz on the dessert. But if it's part of the meal, it's covered by the bread. But that's because it's dessert, it's not part of the meal. Okay?
Yeah, Rabbi, I
Yeah.
know two different categories of geffen and grapes as main but I still feel, grape juice and grapes are very close. For example, while I'm eating a lot of grapes, I think maybe it's good to make some juice from these grapes, and then I made a small cup of grape juice with very simple method, squeezing.
Right.
Then I need to make a separate blessing for the
Right.
newly squeezed.
It's a good question. Some rabbis really agree with you. They say that, what makes the juice from the grape special is when it ferments, when it becomes wine. And there's a big debate. Can you make a borei pri hagefen on grape juice, which is not fermented? It's just juice from the grape. So you should make a borei pri ha'etz, but it doesn't have the shape of the original fruit anymore. And it's designed for making wine, really. But the bottom line is, the poskim say that if you have no other choice, it's not ideal to be making kiddush on grape juice because it's not really wine. And wine was used. Grape juice is not kosher for the temple. It had to be fermented. It had to be special. But the consensus nowadays is you can and should make borei pri hagefen even on grape juice that you've squeezed without fermenting, but it's problematic. It's a problematic bracha. Grape juice is not really wine, but it gets the status of wine according to the way. The bottom line,
Even you keep in a container for a few days, it could ferment a little bit. Right?
That's right. That's fine. Yeah, that's right. It could ferment exactly.
But can someone who's not Jewish yet, someone who's not Jew, can he then touch the grape juice? Because the wine he cannot touch. But some people say you can also not touch the grape juice.
Because like you said, grape juice can ferment very easily. And he can touch it, it's just a question of whether a Jew can drink it afterwards.
Cooked or not cooked.
Yeah,
also not cooked.
Yeah.
Do you say borei pri hagefen on when it's mefushal?
I'm not Yemenite, so I don't say borei pri hagefen.
Okay, Kevin, can you say that?
Now you are Yemenite?
Huh?
Now you are Yemenite? You follow the...
Yeah, I'm just Michael.
He's just Micha. He's dabbling. He likes Yemenite pronunciation. In any case.
But you don't...
One second. So if you... I think there are rabbis who say that you cannot make up a borei pri hagefen or jaffa on grape juice. About mevushal, that's what you asked me. Mevushal or not mevushal is a question of whether it's worthy. Like the idea is that in the temple they never used mevushal, wine which was processed, which was cooked, and so. And in the ancient cultures also, the pagans would never use wine which was cooked, which is actually very useful for us. So if we cook it up, then even if somebody who we might suspect of using it for a foreign god, then we don't have to, it doesn't become prohibited, because the ancient pagans never used cooked wine, so cooked wine you don't have to worry about. That's where it comes from, this idea that if it's yain mevushal, that a non-Jew touches it, or moves it, you don't have to worry about it. So, in any ways, without getting into the details, mevushal, I think all grape juice is mevushal. And some people prefer not to use mevushal for kiddush. Because we're trying to pattern ourselves after the temple. But the common consensus is you don't have to have... We're not in the temple. We don't have a temple. And so we don't apply the laws of the temple. And so you can make kiddush even on yain mevushal, and it makes it simpler if you have a non-Jew around who is handling your wine. There's no problem if it's mevushal. That stricture of the rabbis doesn't apply to wine which... And the question is, what does mevushal mean? Also, so many wines are pasteurized. Louis Pasteur discovered that if you boil up the wine and the water, it kills all the germs, the bacteria. Yeah, so this is very. That's why we pasteurize milk, so that nobody gets sick. And so it's pasteurizing. It's named after Louis Pasteur. That's his name. Pasteurizing. There's a debate whether or not that gets hot enough to be considered to be yain mevushal. Common consensus is that it is. Mevushal is pasteurized, means mevushal, and it's good enough. That's many of the wines are pasteurized for health reasons, and that gives you very useful leniency. Okay, Hananel, what did you want to ask?
After Ensolos, the ending must be boiled in episode.
Depends. If you ate additional foods, like what do we say? There's 6 foods, 6 types of food. Mezonot, gefet, etz, adaman, shakol. The adaman, shakol are not covered by the special bracha mein shalosh. You need the borei nefashot to cover the adaman, shakol. Yesterday we had a unique situation. That's what Rev Lissman and I were discussing at the party, and also afterwards we had a nice little Torah discussion. And that was, we ate fruits from the 7 species, right? The olives, and the dates, and the pomegranates. But we also had an apple, and an orange, and a prune, which is nuts, which are not part of the 7 species. So, do we have to say, their bracha is azait, but they're not part of the 7 species? So do you have to say a separate borei nefashot afterwards? And the answer is no. If you only ate fruits, even if they're not of the 7 species, the bracha that you say al haperot in the mein shalosh covers other types of fruits as well. So, but if we had adama or shakol, which we didn't really have anything, we didn't have any vegetables, and we didn't have any eggs or other kind of things which are shakol, then we would have to say the borei nefashot, because the only thing we had was fruit. Even though the fruits were not part of the 7 species, the consensus of the poskim is they're covered. Shulchan Aruch says it clearly. The other fruits are covered by the al haperot, the version of al hamichya, which applies to the 7 species.
But I also heard that when you eat rice and you say mezunot, you also say borei nefashot.
That's afterwards. That's afterwards.
Because it's also not included.
That's an exception. That even they say the mezunot, the first bracha afterwards.
Also for pasta.
Essentially, the al hamichya, the main shalosh, is only for the 7 special fruits. If you have only, for example, if you didn't have any pomegranates or dates, and you only had nuts, the almonds, and the oranges and apples, what's the after bracha? borei nefashot. Right? The after bracha for oranges and apples is borei nefashot. It's only these special fruits, the seven special fruits. Chitas ora gefen teina v'rimon. Eretz shemen udvash. It's only those 7 that have a special after bracha called me'in shalosh with the appropriate endings. Okay? Yeah.
Like a meal like yesterday, what we did?
Yeah.
You also can say Birkat HaMazon.
Yes, but we don't paskin like that unless you have so much cake and cookies made from the 5 grains. The mezonot turns into hamotzi. If you have such a large quantity, if you ate a whole cake, not just one piece of cake, but a whole cake, maybe you would have to say afterwards the hamotzi, because it's considered to be a meal. It turns it into a meal.
You only eat mezunot.
That's right. There was no hamotzi. There was no bread. Right, exactly.
If I ate 10 of these croissants, of this chocolate...
If you had 10 of them, maybe that would be already... You would need hamotzi, you would need a birkat hamazon.
It's like pizza. How much size pizza you have to eat?
I don't know exactly. I think it's try to remember. It's like 500 grams. That's a lot.
But I don't know how to measure.
Right. It depends also how to measure, because there's lots of other ingredients in the cake. There's sugar, there's eggs, and there's other things. So they take up some of the volume. It has to be that amount of volume. It's the volume of 4 eggs. Well, 4 eggs, I think, is usually it's about 250 grams or 350 grams. I can't remember right now, but we can look it up. If you have that much cake, you have to say Birkat Hamazon afterwards. And if you know ahead of time that you're going to have that much cake, you should say Hamotzi, not Mezonot. Okay, we have to stop here, and we'll finish here for today. We'll continue with Hashem, and